April 6, 2024. It's the Watt from Pedro show. Watt from Pedro show. Happy Saturday. Started off with John Coltrane. A live excerpt from November 18, 1961. This is a piece of Impressions. Great tune. And we had TAM with 2S Bell. 2S Bell Portant. I should say the whole thing. And you could tell that I'm not in man alone mode because of the geniuses over there from Estonia with their Skype invention. I got TAM all the way from Montreal. Welcome aboard, TAM.
Hi, Mike. It's a real privilege to be here.
And I gotta, or not I, but both you and me gotta give credit to Bob Tegan for making the connect.
Yes. Robert is the man that filmed Sonic Youth for over 2 decades, I think.
He's one of them. There's quite a few people like that. But yeah, Bob has a style all his own. Beautiful man. I've cocked at his pad for years.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, this is about you. So please bring your earliest musical memory, please.
Earliest musical. I started by playing classical piano.
Well, it's not about you playing especially. It's just your earliest musical memory. I've had people on the show talk about being still inside their ma and hearing stuff.
Well, I heard a lot of bands when I was young in elementary school, but I don't really want to talk about those bands because I was more impressed by the first few shows that I saw by the Pogues in Vancouver. I remember seeing
let's talk about first gigs. What was the first gig that you saw, period?
The very first gig or the very first gig that I really liked?
I said, what was your very first gig you saw?
I think that would have been the Bee Gees. My dad brought me to see the Bee Gees at the Forum when I was in elementary school.
What was the first record you bought with your own money?
I think that was Violent Femmes.
Okay, they had problems in Canada with that name of the band. Huh? Let me ask you this. The pad you grew up with, was there musical instruments?
Well, I rented a electronic drum kit in Vancouver because we moved a lot. We moved from Montreal to Florida to Vancouver and then New Mexico and back to Montreal. Like, it was sort of nonstop moving. But in Vancouver, I remember having an electronic drum kit.
Well, I'm wondering if your parents played. Did they have instruments in the pad?
My mom played piano and sang all the time. Yeah.
Now, did you get on the piano? Did you jump on it? Were you? Did you have to endure what some people who've been on the show call the piano lesson ordeal?
Yes, I was forced to take classical piano lessons.
And what was that like for you? Was it positive or negative experience, Tam?
Well, the waltzes I liked. I didn't really like the forced discipline of having to learn lessons, but I did appreciate it later when I learned, was it Beethoven's Sonata Pathétique, the second movement. I really liked that classical piece. But other than that, I did not like being forced to play the piano.
Let me ask you this. In school, were you in the marching band or the choir, shit like that?
Absolutely nothing in school, no.
Okay.
No music in school. No, just art.
Yeah, but art is music. Anyway,
yeah, no, I didn't do music.
I don't want to get mixed up with semantics. Let's talk about your journey through music. So, I'm not talking about graduating school, but when you got out of school in the afternoon, did you get into like a garage band, basement band, bedroom band kind of thing?
In Vancouver, I had a friend, Andy Hillhouse. I think he was into Irish Celtic music, and I had an acoustic guitar. I was listening to a lot of REM at the time, I think, but I wasn't really playing that much. I was kind of playing little ditties. It was only till I moved back to Montreal that I
how did you learn about guitar? Did you take lessons?
No, I never took any guitar lessons. The first time I learned guitar was when I met Mike King in the Metro. He was playing with these guys from Winnipeg in a Django Reinhardt cover band, Swing Dynamique. So I ended up actually joining that band, and he taught me how to play like Django Reinhardt rhythm guitar. Like, he was extreme disciplinarian, and he taught me all the jazz chords. And I had never even really listened to jazz. I didn't really know what it was. because I used to listen to more like weird folk rock punk stuff, and Mike taught me like purest Django rhythm guitar. So
You
it was
think the
weird.
you think the piano helped you learn guitar?
Yeah, definitely with the notes for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was your first gig? Playing with those
My
guys
first
in the
gig
was it playing with those guys in the Django Reinhardt band?
Yeah, well, like the band kind of busted up when I moved in with them, and the band kind of busted up, and two of the guys went back to Winnipeg, and I ended up playing rhythm guitar with Mike, and we got this drummer Elwa Bertole, who was an excellent drummer. We played at Jazz Club Elda James in Old Montreal. Those were our very first gigs. Yeah, and all these jazz guys started joining, like legendary guys like Guy Nadeau and Roger Walls. That he was Duke Ellington's trumpetist. These guys, like Mike, built up this incredible band at Swing Dynamique. So I was like really lucky to be part of that because I was just learning how to play through him, you know. Yeah, so we played the jazz festivals and everything. It was quite a time.
And how long did that last?
For me, it lasted about 6 years. We played like hundreds of gigs. It was crazy. I was at university at Concordia doing film animation at the same time. So I was doing like an animated film to one of the Swing Dynamique songs we recorded. And we played the Jello Bar a lot. CBC did a live recording with us after about 6 years at a club in Old Montreal. And then Ivan of Men Without Hats was kind of helping to manage us. But at that point I was like writing my own songs. After about 6 years, I wasn't so much into the jazz thing, even though I was playing in that band. I was writing my own stuff, which in a totally different, like sort of alternative pop style, you know. And then I got kicked out of Swing Dynamique because Mike and I had a big fight. So I was writing my own material and recording with Johnny Serranis, this bass player from Go Van Go. I recorded it like many years with him while I was in Swing Dynamique. It was kind of all mixed together before I was out of that band because I wasn't getting along with Mike, and I went to New York a few times. Yeah, things were getting a bit mixed up.
Okay, I want to play this music you gave me. You gave me this song called Your Only Meat. I want to play that. Live from Pedro's show. That chunk of music started off with TAM doing Your Only Meat. Kim Gordon after that. Brand new Bye Bye. This was something live from her with her new band. Robin Hatch featuring Joseph Shabison with The Standoff. Brand new from Light in Tokyo. Robin Hatch is from Toronto area. She was playing keyboards for the Porno for Pyro. Fellow Canadian like he. Light from Tokyo, brand new Upper Mantle. Basho Taste. This is old stuff, but it's been re-released. I think it's from 2009. Passed Out in Petals. Brand new from Seb Radix in Lyon, France. Cactus Fleury. Flowers, huh? Personal Trainer from Star Jelly. That's brand new. Guided by Voices with Chain Dance. Gareth Littard with She's My Favorite. That's with the U people, like the England way they spell it. And maybe originally French, huh? TAM finally with Downbound Train. So, when do you start recording or doing gigs as TAM?
1998, I did a gig with Peter Boucher. Well, we were called TAM, but it was an Oasis cover band, oddly, because we were listening to a lot of Oasis and Beatles. But we played some of my originals with Peter. He was a hardcore drummer in a band called Les Flocons Givrés before. Excellent drummer. He died. After that gig, I got other bandmates, and we were called the Vampires. Like it was TAM with Johnny Serranis' musicians. I played a whole bunch of gigs around Montreal and Toronto, and got into this marketing program that someone else international with Christine, this British lady. She hired me in her program with 10 other guys. We went to England as TAM, and so I got to record a real recording through that program. We went to Manchester in the city conferences. I met like a bunch of cool musicians in Manchester, and came back. Well, I met Arthur Baker there. I'd stayed with Arthur Baker. I met Joe Moss. It was really cool. Just bass player named John Sheehan showed me all around Manchester. I ended up playing some gigs as TAM there at like Night and Day, Star and Garter, the Blue Cat Cafe in Manchester. There's a really cool scene in Stockport. And ended up coming back and playing with the Vampires. It was called the Vampires after that. Thurston, like I met Thurston at Sala Rossa, who eventually ended up signing me to his label, and he changed the name The Vampires because we were called The Vampires with this guy Andy, who I was singing with from Connecticut. Thurston he took off his material for some reason and kept all the demos I'd sent him over the years and called it TAM. So Thurston actually called me TAM officially.
And can you remember the first TAM song you wrote?
The very first TAM song? I do, but I haven't actually recorded it. So I don't know if I could count that one.
Yeah, I would count it. If you wrote it, you wrote it. I didn't say
Billy ran around the corner.
I didn't ask you.
I think I was 17.
I didn't ask you what song you first recorded. I said, what song did you first write?
It was called Billy Ran Around the Corner, but I never recorded it. I think I was 17.
I think most people probably write songs before they record them. Not always, but probably mostly. I'm just going to guess on that. So, yeah, you told me a whole bunch of events that happened in your life. So Thurston signs you. Do you have a band, and there was somebody in the band from Connecticut that Thurston took out of the band?
Yeah, well, because there was I was playing with this guy, Andy Flesh from Connecticut. He was a Czechoslovakian guy who came to Montreal. I met him randomly on the street with some American guys, and we started playing together. He was this cool, really tall, skinny punk guy who knew punk. He played a lot of punk stuff, way more punk than I was, like musically. But we started playing together a bunch of gigs, and I had this like other band, John Serranis, who was the bass player for Go Van Go. He was a great bass player. I was playing with him and a drummer, Jan. There was a few drummers, Johnny Graham, who brought us to this club called Pasilamani. There was like this punk scene going on, so we were all playing. All these punk people were playing at Pasilamani every weekend, which is where I met Dave Wanger. So the Vampires were playing there, but I'd recorded all this other stuff with Johnny as TAM, and yeah, there was this other guy, Nick Thorburn, also, who was part of the scene, whose songs ended up on my CD because he'd stayed in my room and I had his recordings there, so I was messing with his recordings. Thurston, I don't know why he didn't like Andy's material. He took it off of all the demos. Like, I was actually in a band with Andy, but he didn't include Andy's stuff, and he put on Nick's material that I'd added vocals to. He liked it better for some reason, and I wasn't in a band with Nick. Nick was just like subletting my apartment when I went to England, and I was adding vocals on his songs. Thurston liked that material better. He took off all Andy's stuff and called it TAM. And Andy was really upset, actually. He actually left town. He was so upset, to be honest.
So you're saying, let me get this straight. You're saying your first album that was called TAM had material that was kind of all over the place.
Yeah. I don't think Thurston just told me to keep sending him all my material. So I sent him about 5 years of stuff, demos and recordings that I did at Johnny's studio and Studio Loco and And some of the stuff included Nick's stuff. And Thurston, like Nick is in a band called the Unicorns. They're called Islands now. They live in LA, actually. You might have heard of them. But some of Nick's stuff was oddly on that CD because Thurston preferred it over the stuff Andy was doing with me. That I wasn't in a band with Nick. I was in a band with Andy. So yeah, it was a bit all over the place.
Okay, so when the record comes out and it's time to tour it, what songs do you play in front of people?
You know, that was really well, I was also recording with this guy, Dave Wanger of Daddy's Hands at the time, who was a pretty punk goth band from Victoria. And I had some of Dave Wanger's songs on there. Dave got ran over by a car. Sadly, he died. Daddy's Hands did not. Anyway, I'm not going to get into the Daddy's Hands thing because there was a problem with Thurston and the Daddy's Hands, but there's 2 Daddy's Hands covers on that TAM self-titled Ecstatic Peace release. Thurston got me international distribution on Universal, which is like worldwide distribution. So I was so excited at the time, but I could, I went to New York. Thurston gave me some money and said, go tour. And that's it. I had like no contacts, no manager, no booking agent, nothing. I had to do it all myself. So
And did you have a band, or were you like playing solo with like acoustic guitar?
I had a band in Montreal, but when I tried to get people to leave Montreal, it was kind of like a nightmare. Nobody wanted to go because I couldn't afford to pay everybody. It wasn't enough money to pay a band to leave town. So I went. I paid my drummer to go to New York, and we did a gig at Tonic and Trash. Some gigs. Well, that Tonic doesn't exist anymore. Alan Licht was doing sound for us.
I think Tonic was... It was
where Yoko Ono played.
Well...
It was kind of a avant-garde club. It was a really cool club.
The cat was John Zorn. He was the guy who got that together.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that. It was an amazing club. Yeah, but it's not there. It doesn't exist anymore. But I went there with Jan, my drummer Jan, and we played some gigs in New York. And then I booked other gigs. He went back to Montreal, and I played other gigs on my own in Massachusetts that I'd booked at like PA's Lounge in Cambridge.
And you're talking just playing acoustic guitar and singing?
Electric guitar.
Oh, you were playing electric. Okay.
I had a drummer in New York, but I didn't have a drummer.
That acoustic guitar stuff was with the Django Reinhardt band. Okay.
Understood. No, I wasn't playing jazz anymore. I was playing all my own
stuff.
Yeah,
I understand, but I'm just trying to clear it up, which...
Yeah,
I wasn't there, so you got to give me a little time to understand. Parlez-vous.
I was playing with pre-recorded drum tracks, the other solo shows, electric guitar with pre-recorded drum tracks that I made myself. When I didn't have a drummer, I used pre-recorded drum tracks coming through the PA and electric guitar and vocals. So I did that in Massachusetts and then in Toronto and with some bands called the Scarlet Fever, there was Toronto bands, and then in Montreal I was supposed to tour. The label wanted me to tour in England. I had a lot of difficulty logistically. I had a 10-city UK tour.
When was this?
2006.
2000. Okay, so we're talking 18 years ago. Okay.
Yeah, and I almost did a UK tour of 10 cities. It was all booked, but there was Jean Leloux's guitar player who was going to drive me, and it was a big nightmare. Bad things happened. It got canceled, and the booker wasn't very compromising, so I didn't end up doing that. But I went back to England. I went back to New York. I played a lot on my own without a band, and then years later, I got a band together and opened for Nick Cave with a full band in Montreal because basically, Montreal is where my band would play.
Well, it was hard to get them to play out of town. Yeah, I understand that.
I couldn't get them out of town. I couldn't.
No, I've had other musicians tell me of similar situations, and it's a heartbreak, because you want to bring your music to people, but then you can't support kind of thing like that. So you just got to adapt. Like what you did was put drums on a machine and play to that, you make it happen, right?
I really wanted my band to go. They were all older guys who had already done major label tours before. They didn't do this as a big deal. They'd already done big tours like Men Without Hats and like Go Van Gogh. They were
Yeah, but that
big
don't
bigger
impress me.
time
I don't give a
musicians than
fuck
me,
about
so they
that.
didn't view my little tour as like a
Yeah,
big
but
deal.
I think they're dicks. Because I don't believe in big and little stuff like that.
But they also
That's
didn't have the
just
money.
that's just my opinion. Okay, I wasn't there. Okay. Anyway,
But
we're at the end of the first hour, April 6, 2024 edition. Watt Pedro Show special guest TAM. Hold tight for hour 2. April 6, 2024. It's the second hour of the Watt from Pedro Show. Watt from Pedro Show. We start off the second hour with TAM doing Holy Anything. If I saw him with Brain Hat. And then, I found this compilation from Blind Pigeon Records. This is a label in Pottsville, Pennsylvania. And they gave me this. I was on tour, and they gave me this CD. It's got a lot of neat stuff, so I played a bunch of it here. Matt Ortiz, Float in Paris. Gleason's Drift with So Glad It's Christmas, even though it ain't Christmas. Mike Narvaez. Sorry, Mike. One of Those Things. John Lipzock with Astral Delusion. And then back to TAM with That Woman of Yours. 24 Hours. I guess it's 2 tunes. So, okay, this drama. Well, you only made one record for Thurston. So what happens after that?
We had a 3-album. He gave me a 3-album contract, but the album, the second and third album, were optional. And after 3 months, he said the album wasn't selling fast enough, and said he was going to opt out of the second album. I saw him at Osheaga Fest because I was playing Osheaga Fest, and so was Sonic Youth. We met in the field, I remember, and he was saying, "Oh, congratulations on Rock in the Field," but then he said he couldn't carry on with CD number 2, and I was really disappointed because he was supposed to have given me a full year to see the record sales, not 3 months, and I was like a bit shocked that he'd said that, so I just kept, what did I do? I went back to England. I went back to England. I was there for 3 months, and then I was gigging a lot and met Haven, and it's the whole scene in Manchester. But it was very hard for me to stay in England because I had no visa to work, so I couldn't stay. I had to come back to Canada, even though I wanted to stay in England. But I came back here and I gigged. I did a bunch of recordings, like solo recordings, again with drum tracks I'd made myself. It was all like endless solo albums. And then I booked David J. Haskins, the bass player from Bauhaus, a gig here. He came from Los Angeles to perform because he was singing now as the leader of a band. So I got to open for him at Catacombs. It really like brought me back to life because I wasn't sure what was going on anymore. It was excellent, that performance. And I was recording also with Harry Howard. Well, Harry Howard, Roland S. Howard's brother in Australia?
No, but I know of Roland's work with Birthday Party.
Yeah, Roland was Nick Cave's guitarist. Harry Howard is Roland's brother. And he's a bass player. He's also a singer in Australia. He writes some pretty cool songs. I'd been talking with him a lot online, and I covered like 5 of his songs. We did licensing contract, and then I ended up doing a demo with him and this guy Christopher Richard Barker years later. Like I'd fallen sick with thyroid cancer, so I had like a surgery. They took out my thyroid and ripped my vocal nerve, so I couldn't speak anymore. It was a bit of a nightmare. I had to stop singing for a while. This guy Christopher Richard Barker in England was trying to cheer me up after my surgery by trying to record a song with him, and I brought Harry Howard onto the recording. We made a demo, but we never released it because Chris had a bit of a fit in his mind about what we recorded, so we couldn't get along, and I recovered after a couple years. Like I lost my jobs. I was working. I wasn't on welfare all these years. I was working jobs all these years, which made everything quite difficult. Touring wise, I couldn't really tour because I was working to pay my rent, jobs. And I used to go see the Sadies a lot, wanting the Sadies, like to take me on tour with them because I thought they were an excellent band, and I saw that they had their touring thing together really well. And it was they never really invited me on tour, but years later I got to gig with the bassist and the drummer of the Sadies, Mike Belitsky and Sean Dean, because they were playing in a trio with Nickel Robertson, this totally fantastic guitar player from Toronto.
Was Sadie's John from Mekons?
John?
Yeah. He was
Sadie's was Dallas and Travis Good. Dallas and Travis Good were the leaders, two brothers. Dallas died recently.
I thought maybe I'm getting the names confused, but the guy who used to be the drummer from the Mekons moved to Chicago, and he had a band. I thought they were called the Sadies.
I don't know about that. They're from Toronto, the Sadies.
Okay.
I used to hang around with.
I'm thinking of somebody from Chicago. John.
Maybe
he's an England guy. I think he married a U.S. lady in Chicago. Anyway, so you gave me this song, Spielen, Sturben, Tanz. I want to play that.
Yeah.
Live from Pedro show. That chunk of music started off with TAM doing Spielen, Sturben, Tanz. BW. Here's some more music from that Blind Pigeon compilation, Pottsville, Pennsylvania. BW with State Bird, Tupperware Wolf, In Transit, The Goddamn Kingpins with Always Love, Love Always, Dan Leathersitch with I Come From the Dark, Nick Meyer, Away From Here, and then TAM with Pretty Lover Boy. Enlighten us to Spielen, Sturben, Tanz, TAM.
Yes?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, what was your question?
It wasn't a question. I said it was a request. Please enlighten us.
Oh, about Spielen, Sturben, Tanz? That was a song. Okay, well, I have this friend, Louise Le Cavalier, who's this modern dancer. She's really well-known modern dancer. She used to dance with David Bowie, and she's just the most incredible dancer. I've been to all her shows over the years. She was dancing at the Goethe Institute, and she had this musician, Tommy Fink, with her, who I met after her show. We ended up doing like a collaboration. He took my song Radioactivity that was on my Him Her album. He took just the vocal line, and then he did a remix for the music, and he told me to redo the lyrics, but he wanted it in German because he's German and he didn't really understand. He couldn't relate to the English lyrics I was writing. So, well, my neighbor John Reisner, who's a German blues guitarist who lives upstairs from me, he's a pretty legendary blues guitarist. He speaks German, and I mean, he helped me with a couple lines, but I wrote the whole song. I wrote a completely different song based on this guy Helmut and Gina, these German kind of neoists who are living in Montreal that I met. The song was kind of about them. It was she was a stripper and her boyfriend is a nihilist, neoist guy. So I wrote the lyrics about them, and that's how that song came about. Really.
So you got different ways of writing songs. Do you make demos? Do you use a 4-track or something like that?
I usually do it in GarageBand but I'll do the basic demo in GarageBand, and then I'll record it at either my bass player Johnny or at Studio Loco, Martin Bennett's place, like the proper recordings.
And do you write your lyrics on demand like with this German thing here, or do you have like big collection of poetry and lyrics that you go into?
I usually write songs first as lyrics, as poetry. I'm always writing, lyrics first, and then I'll write the music after. If you saw my room, it looks like an ADD nightmare of notes and papers everywhere with all writings everywhere because it's hard to keep control of all the ideas, you know?
Somebody once said that creative mess is better than tidy idleness.
My sister forced me to get file folders because they were a bit worried about me.
Okay.
The mess. but it's getting
Yeah,
better.
but if creative stuff comes out of that, I don't think it's totally negative. Some people that get organized to the extent that they get nothing creative, they're just cleaning up shit. So I don't think you're totally wrong about that, Dan. Look, we're at the end of the second hour.
Okay.
Of the April 6, 2024 edition of Pedro Show. Best special guest from Montreal, TAM. Hold tight for hour 3. April 6, 2024. It's the third hour of the Watt from Pedro Show. Watt from Pedro Show start off the third hour with TAM doing Jack Dempsey, which ain't about the boxer, but she's going to hip you to that. Hold on. Emmer with -1. The Extract, this is a Montreal band. Drop Cloth. Cat named Steve Howe. I do something with him called The Island. We're working on another chapter of that endeavor. TAM with Baby Don't Want Me to Be a Cowgirl. And then here's another Montreal. You know Chris Burns? He's part of this thing called the Ratchet Orchestra. This is Live Halloween 2012, Safety. And then finally TAM with Fairgrounds. First, hip us to Jack Dempsey and why it ain't about the boxer.
Okay, yeah. Well, the title Jack Dempsey, most people know that name as the boxer, but it's about this guy I know. I'm not really allowed to say his name. He's gonna get mad at me, but his brother was nicknamed Jack Dempsey in real life, and he went to jail for murder. It's like a true story. This is why I can't really talk about who I'm talking about. He's in jail in England for murder, and he says he didn't do it or something, but his nickname is Jack Dempsey, so that's who that song is actually about.
Yeah, and sometimes he'll call somebody a Jack Dempsey because there was a haircut that Jack Dempsey liked. And people get that kind of haircut in those. Yeah, in fact, when Mike Tyson was first starting out, he had kind of a Jack Dempsey. It's real high sideburns.
Okay. I don't know.
And what about Fairgrounds?
Fairgrounds I wrote. It's kind of Britpop based song. It's kind of a feminist lyrics about how men don't usually want to include women in the bands. If you listen to the lyrics.
What does that have to do? You think it's connected with Britpop? I mean, let me ask you this first, Tam. What's your whole opinion about genre?
My opinion about genre? I think it's good to mix genres because I've never been one genre and often...
Yeah, music is music, right?
Yeah, I've never been one genre, but people usually expect you to be one genre.
I know, and I hate that, man. Me and you are united against this fucking movement to make genre a basis for understanding music, right? Music
I've always
first.
had difficulty with that. People asking me what style you are, and I can't tell them because
I'm glad.
Yeah.
I hope you confuse the fuck out of them because I hate that shit. It's a gulag. So tell me, Fairgrounds. Now, when you set out to write a song, you being a woman, naturally it's going to have a woman's point of view, but you wanted to make it even more obvious, especially in rock and roll, right? There's a lot of this male-oriented shit. Yeah.
I don't know. I specifically wrote the lyrics in that song because I think I wrote it after I was dealing with Chris and Harry because it was a bit of a macho attitude I was getting, and I'm working on a project. Not to diss anybody, but when a female is in charge of a project. Anyway, I don't want to talk about that.
No. What about making a proj with women musicians?
Yeah, no, I don't want to have to do that. I would like to be able to get along with guys.
Yeah, of course.
And treat women as equal or even superior. But the lyrics in Fairgrounds, because I'm not into the whole feminist thing where you're going to go do a festival where it's all women. I do not like that. Men and women should work together and treat each other properly. That's all. And Fairgrounds is kind of, lyrics.
I know, but if you've had a lot of bad luck working with male musicians, maybe you should try giving female musicians, not because of any kind of ideology, just try because you've had a lot of failure with the...
I've had very good luck. It's just that some guys have attitudes. It doesn't mean it's bad luck and that you have to go look for women to work with. You just have to... Okay. Men I think they just have more difficulty communicating with women. When it comes to in general, not only musically, but in general, like a guy will talk with more respect to another guy than to a woman. Usually,
Not
right?
all guys.
Well, there's a lot of that. There's still a lot of that. Anyway, we don't have to talk about that on that. I'd rather talk about the music than about sexism. Because I wrote a song,
Well, I only brought that up because you said you wrote from a feminist point of view. That's the only reason I brought that up.
Yeah,
Tam.
I tend to, but I'm not against working with men. I like working with guys. I get along better with guys than with women in general, But
Well, somebody could talk about that too because of the competition the situation presents between women. They have to be fighting over each other, maybe. I don't know. You wrote this, you gave me this song, This Is Not My Invention. This is not invention.
This is not invention. Yeah, that was one of my first demos, yeah.
Is it? Let's play it.
Yeah.
Off from Pedro Show Last Music for this edition. That chunk started out with TAM doing This Is Not Invention. Then, some more tunes from that Blind Pigeon Records compilation at Pottsville, Pennsylvania. La Overtoner with My Sister's Ring. Philzy Phils with Greatest Hits. Seamus 67 with Western Adventure. Totally Quality Institute with Walk and Crawl. And then back to TAM with Dear Rich. So you're saying This Is Not Invention was one of your first demos?
Yes, I recorded that with Johnny. Well, that we recorded with that when I was in that marketing program. They paid for a proper recording studio. That was with Johnny Serranis on bass, Mike Dennis drums, and I think Bob Murphy on lead guitar. But I wrote the song and played rhythm and vocals. Yeah.
And
it was a bit Blur influenced, that song, because I used to like Blur and Oasis in those days. But that particular song, I think it was more influenced by Blur. In the chorus, at least. The build-up to the chorus had...
Yeah, I don't remember asking you that. Well, what about Dear Rich?
What is it about?
No, just what about it? Just what... a lot of people, Tam, sometimes I ask people about songs, and they say, Why do I have to talk about that song? That's why I wrote it. So you could answer it that way if you wanted to, Tam.
Well, it's a song about my friendship with Frank Alpine. He's a Los Angeles punk musician. He was a hardcore drummer in New Collapse previously, but he became an electronic musician and singer. I had a friendship with him about 5 years, and it ended up with that song. Well, I recorded it at Chris Poirier's studio because Chris he said, can you write a song and I'll record it for free? So I actually wrote it because Chris Poirier, he has a Nirvana cover band called April Hate. I opened for his band at Toulouse once, so we became friends. It was a big gig that gig, and he made me write a song because he wanted to produce it. But in the end, I wrote it, and Chris didn't like the song. He didn't want to record it anymore because he didn't like the song or something, and he was too busy. So I recorded it myself, but it was about Frank Alpine.
And if people want to find you on the internet, where would they go?
tam13.bandcamp.com.
Okay. And what's your next plan, musically?
Like last summer, I gigged with Martha Wainwright's pianist on Place Cape McGarrigle, which was a pretty big gig for me because Tom Meunier is one of the best pianists around. He plays with all the big singers in Quebec here, and he plays with Martha and Rufus Wainwright. So I got to gig with him last summer. So that booker, he offered me a gig again this summer coming up. I'm going to do it solo. I'm not doing it with Tom. I'm doing it alone. So I've been working on that. And I recorded Elvis's Daughter CD with Nico Robertson a few years ago. I really loved working with Nico Robertson. I would love to do some live gigs with him, but he's a pretty busy guy. So I'm waiting for him to fit me into one of his gigs in Toronto. That would be for me a fun thing to do, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
What about recording albums? Do you have an album planned?
No, I mean, because I've been working solo so much, I probably will do another solo one, maybe, another solo one with the songs that I actually do, because I do a lot of covers live. I don't always do originals. I do a lot of Britpop covers solo, I'd like to record those, actually. I was recording with my friend John Sheehan, who was sending me tracks in Manchester. He has a band called Hucker. He wanted me to revive these songs. I've been trying to work on Hucker, these Britpop type songs. Other than that, no, I don't have like a strong vision for the future, because I've been working a job, and touring and playing gigs hasn't been my main focus. I played at La Petite Marche, which is on Saint Denis. I'll probably do another gig there, and maybe people will offer me gig after hearing your show. Who knows?
Okay, people, it's been the April 6, 2024 edition of the Watt from Pedro show. Keep your powder dry.